Okay, tiny book stack, it's big now. It's big now. Hey everyone, and welcome to my February TBR Assemble. If you don't know what this is, I'll leave a link up above to my original video where I do all the explanation, but essentially I am travelling with Gwenpool throughout the Marvel Universe. She's going to be giving me different challenges each month based on where I go in the Marvel Universe, and then I do a bunch of rolls which give me a bunch of different cards with different characters and different prompts based on where I land and Infinity Stones, things like this. It sounds a lot more complicated than it actually is, so let's just get into the rolls and exactly what my challenge for the month is. So as you can see, I picked going to PimTech this month because obviously it's the month of Ant-Man and the Wasp, and obviously PimTech is obviously Hank Pym, the creator of the Ant-Man suit company, and my goal is to try and read some of the shortest books on my TBR as well as one of the biggest ones. So let's get into the rolls and exactly how I'm going to fit all of this in. So today we have an Ant-Man as a little counter, and we're also going to be swapping it out with a Wasp because this is the month of Ant-Man and the Wasp. We were on 21 last time, so let's go in with roll number 1. Is a 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 green. That is comics. Right, let's have a go through. That was a terrible fan. That's a bit better. And I'm gonna go here. That is Stan Lee. Any comic I want. That could not be a better prompt right now. My first roll gave me the best option ever, which was Stan Lee to read any comic I want. So for that, I'm going for my Ant-Man collection because it's the month of Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, so naturally I'm going to be reading a lot of Ant-Man comics this month. I'm going to be reading about all of the different Ant-Men who are featured in this film, so basically Scott and Hank. I'm also going to be reading about Janet Van Dyne as well, who is the Wasp, as well as Nadia Van Dyne, who is, like, not in the movie, but there is no hope in the comics, so I'm going for Nadia instead, as well as anything I can do with Stature as well, Cassie Lang, as well as Kang the Conqueror, because he is the villain of this movie. So essentially, any comic I want means a ton of Ant-Man, Wasp, Stature, and Kang the Conqueror comics, because why not? Roll number 2 is a 1, so 1, that is red retellings like the Reality Stone. Kim was a terrible fan. I'm doing terribly today on the fanning out, so that way this one, because it's sticking up further than anything else. I used to have nothing from the priority list. My next prompt was I used to have nothing, a book from the priority list, so I'm going for The Broken Wish by Julie C. Dow. This is part of the series called The Mirror by Disney Hyperion, and it says family curses always start somewhere. This is a series where each book in this series is going to be written by somebody else. It's sort of fairy tale-esque from what I can tell. I think this one, I'm not entirely sure if this is actually a retelling or if it's just sort of fairy tale-esque. I'm counting it anyway, and we are starting with like the beginning of this curse, that kind of thing. I've been really wanting to read this one for a while, and now is the perfect time to do it. Roll number 3 is a 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. That's another reality retelling. Okay then, let's go. I've picked up 2 there actually by accident, but I got Captain Carter, a female-led retelling. My next prompt was Captain Carter, a female-led retelling, so I'm going for The Stardust Thief, which I think is a retelling of, I want to say Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, because it says here about 40 thieves and things like this, so I think that's what this is based off of. I just know that it's a retelling and I'm very excited to read it. I've had amazing things about this since it came out last year, and I'm also going to be counting this for the longest book on my TBR because while it's only 460 odd pages, it is in hardback, which means it's technically probably around 500 in paperback, and I'm just going to go for it because I have a very busy month this month and I don't know how much time I'm going to have, so I'm kind of mitigating the long book essentially. And if you couldn't guess, the short books, by the way, are the Ant-Man comics, because I mean, I could make the joke, but it's pretty obvious why they're going to be the short books on my TBR. But anyway, this is what I'm going for, that prompt of female-led retelling, and I'm very, very excited to finally see what the hype is about with this book. Roll number 4 is a 6, so that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Blue, that is sci-fi after the Space Stone. I'm gonna go for this one here. Sinister Strange, a book in a trilogy. My next prompt was Sinister Strange, which is a book in a trilogy, so I'm going for The Final Strife. This is not a sci-fi, unfortunately, but do you know how hard it was to find a trilogy that was a sci-fi that I haven't read yet? I found that really difficult. If you've got any recommendations, leave them down below because I apparently need them. But essentially, this is another really hyped book. It says, the Empire rules by blood. Red is the blood of the elite of magical control. They are the Embers. Blue is the blood of the poor, of workers of the resistance. They are the Dusters. Clear is the blood of the servants of the crushed, of the invisible. They are the Ghostings. Is that rule about to end? I've heard people raving about this book ever since it came out. I am now desperate to read it. It is part of a trilogy, so even though it's not a sci-fi, I am reading it. I'm just very excited to finally give it a go because it looks stunning and I've heard amazing things about this. Roll number 5 is a 1, so 1, that is Mind Stone, so that is the Own Voices section. I'm gonna go for this little clump here. Steve, an older book. My next prompt was Steve, which is to read an older book that's Own Voices, so I'm going for Heartstopper, and I'm not explaining what this one's about because I think we all know at this point. All I will say is that keep an eye out because I may have a vlog project around this series coming up in February. That's all I'm saying. And then my final roll is another 1, which is another retelling. Okay then. Let's see. Go this way, and I want this one, that is Rocket, an animal companion. And then my final roll gave me Rocket, which is a book with an animal companion. This is originally a retelling, but I could not find a single retelling on my shelves that featured an animal companion. And without making a Beauty and the Beast joke, I had nothing. So if you've got any recommendations, leave them down below because I apparently need them. So instead I just went for an animal companion in a fantasy, and I'm kind of stretching it a little bit, but it's my TBR game, I can do what I want. And I've gone with the first book in the Encrypted series, which is Discount Armageddon by Shauna Maguire. This one is following a cryptid zoologist, which essentially means that our main character is a zoologist for cryptids and things like this, so I'm not entirely sure what that means. I just know that there's some kind of magical creatures, and I'm guessing there's going to be some level of like animal companion there. I know there was a mention of dragons, which excites me greatly. That's all I really know, further than the fact that this main character does not really want to do this. She wants to be a ballroom dancer, and I just trust Shauna Maguire implicitly at this point with books, so I'm just very excited to start this series. I'm very intimidated by it because it's 15 books long, but either way, I'm so excited to read this. I cannot wait to get into it. It sounds amazing. I love the idea of like this fantasy world, but also like learning more about ballroom dancing, things like this, because I'm a massive fan of Strictly Come Dancing, and I just generally cannot wait to read this. So yeah, very excited to finally give this series a go as well. And that is obviously the end of my rolls, and then I have a couple of other books. The first one I've got to mention is The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, which I've just realised I could have gone for the prompt of a book in a trilogy that's a sci-fi, because the back of this book says that this is volume 2 in the trilogy of 4. It says trilogy on the back, so I could have gone for this in the end. I may actually swap it out if I run out of time to also read The Final Strife. I don't know, but that's... why does that say that? That's weird. Anyway, this is the second one in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. I've got to try and angle this so you can actually see it, because the light was shining a bit too much on that. There we go. Anyway, this is the second one in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, which is just generally a really fun, vibey sci-fi series, essentially. I really like the first one. This is the second one we're reading for that read-along, and I'm very excited to finally read this one. I don't really know much about it because I'm going into these without much sort of expectation or knowledge or anything else, so that's another book I'm going to be reading. The only other physical book I've got is The Unstoppable Wasp, Built on Hope, by Sam Maggs. This one is following Nadia Van Dyne, who I mentioned earlier. I'm hoping to read some of her comics this month, and this will be a continuation on from that, I think. Hopefully, or at the very least, it's going to be about the same character. I'm just very excited. It looks like it's going to be a fairly quick read because the writing's quite big and all of that, but it's going to fit in with my Ant-Man reading, which I'm just very excited to do, so I'm hopefully going to get to this one as well. And then the only other thing I have is my audiobook, and this is actually a very short audiobook, so I may try and read several short audiobooks throughout the month, I don't know, but essentially the short audiobook that is definitely on my list is Tourmaline. This one is basically a sort of tie-in audiobook to do with Carnival Row, which is a TV series on Amazon Prime, which is very much like a high political fantasy but with detective noir elements in it as well. It's a very hard thing to explain. It's a very complicated, very sort of high political fantasy thing, but we are also following a detective that turns into a bit of a detective story. It's also a bit of a love story. This kind of thing is a really good time. I really enjoyed the first series. The second series is going to be its final one that's coming out in February. I'm just very excited to finally watch it though, because I loved the first series, and this is following one of the main character's friends in the series. So very excited to know more about Tourmaline as a character and just get back into the world of Carnival Row, essentially. And I think that's about it in terms of what I'm reading, because I think that's enough to be getting on with. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Comment down below, tell me any of those recommendations I asked for earlier, if you've got any, or if you don't have that much time, leave me an insect related emoji down below to let me know that you're here. I'll also leave the link as well down below to all of my social media if you want to check it out, including to the Comic Book Sanctum, which is my website dedicated to Marvel Comics, which is going to have a ton of stuff on Ant-Man and the Wasp, all iterations, and Kang the Conqueror, and all of that good stuff in time for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania if you're interested in that, as well as a link down below to my Etsy and Redbubble store, which sells bookish merch if you're interested in that, or if you just want to see any more of my videos, including those reading vlogs that I have just mentioned, please click subscribe here, and over here will be the link to my previous video. Until next time everyone, bye!